Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario. We're back over here at our good old friend the PSP right here, and this is going to be a little bit of a supplemental video in regard to ARK-5 custom firmware, although this can also technically work with ARK-4. But I'm saying this because ARK-5 is currently the latest, greatest, and newest custom firmware for the PSP, which I have shown install videos, upgrade videos, and I've been recommending if you're doing a new PSP modification or upgrade or installation here, that you should install ARK-5 if you're going to be going to a custom firmware. But there's been a few issues that people have run into in terms of plugins, settings, and other boot issues which could cause, well, a little something like this right here, where you try to turn on your PSP, maybe it was working just fine before, you had everything set up, all good to go, it was working fine for maybe minutes, hours, days, and now you're getting something like this. You have your PSP, it's working, you really haven't changed too much, it still has custom firmware on it, but you can see that it is not booting up. Well, thankfully, I know the exact issue with this system here, but this isn't going to just diagnose this system. This should hopefully get you all sorted out with some general troubleshooting steps that you can utilize here just by utilizing a few of the buttons here on Bootup on your PSP. So keep in mind, this video is gauged at modified PSPs, which are already running the ARK custom firmware. This is not going to be for stock PSPs, and even if you have another old custom firmware on here, maybe some of this might help you out, but this is mainly going to be gauged for the ARK custom firmware variant. This is really going to be going over the ARK custom firmware key combinations that you can find over on the PSP Homebrew Community GitHub repository page, which I'll have linked down below in the description of this video if you do want to see these combinations for yourself. But we're really just going to be running through these here and what these secret combinations do. Although they're not necessarily secretive, it might just be something that you're really learning here for the first time. So if you have a PSP like this where you were able to successfully install custom firmware on here and it was working fine for a bit and now it's not working here, one of the first things we could try is just to completely disable the custom firmware itself. In order to do that, you can hold down the home button, and when you do that, power it on like so, and now just wait a few moments while you're still holding that home button or the PS button down. And as you can see, the system is now working. Now, this does not mean that the system is fixed, but it does help us get to a better point of understanding here. So you can see it's loaded in, everything is fine, although the downside here is that if you navigate over to your system settings and go all the way over to system information, you'll see that we are running plain Jane version 6.61, meaning that we have temporarily unloaded the custom firmware. So with this, that does mean that we can verify the PSP itself is working fine, it's booting up, it's operational, but there's something going on with the custom firmware itself. I'm actually going to demonstrate this because even if you turn this off completely, so let's just do a full shutdown, and we have verified right there that the system is working, but if we try to turn it back on, you're going to see it's going to do the same thing at the beginning of the video. I can tell the screen has turned on, but you can see we're just completely stuck at a black screen here until the system turns off. So that way we were able to verify, and there it's off, but we're able to verify the system itself is working and is just fine. So with that verified, the next thing we can attempt here is going to be the start button. If you hold down the start button on Bootup like so, this is going to boot up into custom firmware, but it's going to do this with plugins disabled. Now, I know on this system that plugins are not my issue, so we're able to rule something out. You can see the PSP is turning on here, so now through process of elimination, we do know the system is working just fine, we don't have any bad plugins, but the next button press we could try is going to be the select button. If we boot up with the select button held down, this is going to disable any of the custom firmware settings that we've tweaked. So in order to do this, hold down the select button, turn on the system, and wait a bit. Now I can tell this is going to be successful here, so we've done that. And you can see just like that, boom, we have this up and running. Now I'll be able to show you that this is running custom firmware from, well, a few signs right here. First of all, if we navigate over to the extras column, I do now have custom firmware settings available, the plugin manager, as well as the custom launcher. Plus, if we go over to our system settings and scroll all the way down to system information, you can now see that we are running 6.61 ARK-5 cIPL on here, but I am blocking out the MAC address because the MAC address is not blocked by default through my settings since I've disabled all the custom settings on here. So now if you're wanting to diagnose either of these issues, the first one here could be plugins. what you could do is you can navigate over to your plugins manager, for example, and within your plugins manager, let that load in, and there might be a plugin or 2 or 3, but there could be at least one plugin which is having issues. Now, what I would recommend here is if your issue is related to plugins, go in and find the latest plugin that you might have added on. Let's say you just put on a plugin, and after you put that plugin on, you started having issues. You'll need to find that plugin. Let's say mine is Temp AR Lite, for example, and from there you can go in and disable it. After you disable it, you can turn off the system, turn it back on, and if it works successfully, you know that that plugin is a bad plugin, which means you'll probably need to update it, or you might need to wait for an update if it's a plugin that needs a fix or maybe needs support specifically on your firmware. I do know this one works, however, so I'm going to enable it, but also maybe you don't know which plugin it is here. Maybe you just put a bunch of plugins in and you have no idea which one is causing issues. At that point, it's processed through elimination. So what I would do is I would say, well, delete a plugin. That one goes on there by default, so that one's typically fine. But if you don't know which one it is, you could just go into all of your enabled ones and go ahead, disable each one of them here, and then go in, restart your system. Then when you restart the system and it's working properly, you can go in and enable each plugin one by one. Try to enable a plugin, restart the system, enable another plugin, restart the system, and from there you'll be able to determine which plugin is causing an issue. And once you isolate it, like I said, you can either remove that plugin or you can wait for an update or see if there is a fix available for that plugin. However, I do know this system is not a plugin issue. This one is a custom firmware settings issue. So we would do about the same thing. You can navigate into your custom firmware settings. So if there's been any settings you might have tweaked on here, you might just want to reset them back to their defaults, which you can actually do by navigating all the way down here, going to reset settings, and you can confirm that right there. Now, of course, once you do that, it is going to do a soft reboot, so there we go. And if you had any specific settings dialed in, you're going to have to just do that again. But you can see here, the system is now working properly, and we will have to reset any of our customized settings. Now, I've just gone in and checked my settings. They all seem to be fine. However, one of the things that you can play around with, especially on ARK-5, might be some of the clock speeds here. This is not going to be an overclock tutorial. I've covered that in my install and my upgrade ones. However, I do know what the issue with this one was here. The issue with this particular system is that it can do CPU overclocking in-game, but it does not seem to handle CPU overclocking in XMB very well. Because I can show you the XMB is overclocked to 333. However, if I turn this all the way up to 443, for example, and then I try to restart the system, well, it's going to do about the same thing. And I can verify this by turning it on, waiting, and we're not going to get too much because this is a bad setting which does not work for this particular system. So you can see here, even though it was working just a few seconds ago, we're now in another broken state. So this is also how you can learn some of the limitations of your console right here. And again, since I know this is settings, I'm going to hold down the select button, turn on the system, wait a few seconds here. And there we go. That should be good enough. We have this booting up properly now, and now I'll just have to go in and tweak that setting. So this is just an example of what you can try. For this, I've determined that although I can overclock it in-game, it looks like just for the XMB itself, running at 333 is going to be about the most stable I'll get right here. So I'll go ahead and change that. We're going to turn off the system yet again. So again, that setting is in place, and now check this out. If we turn it on normally and wait, we've now been able to fix that. So congratulations, you should be in a better spot now. Whether you've determined this is a plugins issue or a settings issue, hopefully you have that sorted out. Now there's a few other options that we do have available as well. Within the actual XMB itself, you can always press the select button here to bring up the VSH menu. As we can see here, that is one of the things I usually teach in here. So if you found this accidentally or even on purpose or even both somehow, that's how you can access that menu. Sometimes it might not show up, although it has worked out pretty well for me. So if you want to force open that VSH menu, what you can do is hold down both shoulder buttons. That'll be L, R, and select. And if you do that, there we go. You're able to force it open like that. Although, thankfully, I've never had issues with that. I've always just been able to open it without issue using the select button. But there you go, you got a couple options for your VSH menu right there. Now another cool thing you can do is when the system is running, you can actually switch between the VSH menu and the custom launcher pretty easily and kind of at any point in time. I'll actually show you all right here, and again, even though I'm at VSH, this can happen even in game as well too. If I want to boot up the custom launcher right now, you can hold down both shoulder buttons, so that's going to be L and R, and if you're using something such as a PlayStation TV or a Vita TV with ARK-5 on there, it's going to be L1, R1. So you're going to have to do those side buttons right there, but it's going to be both shoulder buttons on the PSP itself, and then you're going to have to press down and start to get into the custom launcher. So let's go ahead and try that here. You'll see it does a little bit of a freeze right there. And as long as we have the necessary data, boom, there we go, we have our custom launcher available. Now let's go ahead and get in-game on here. I'm going to go ahead and boot up Breath of Fire 3. So as you can see, this is up and running and working, and even if you want to right now in game, like I said, you can launch the custom launcher by pressing both shoulder buttons down and start at the same time. However, let's say you want to bypass that completely. If you want to get into the actual VSH itself, so just the main PSP menu or screen system there, what you can do is do both shoulder buttons down and select. So check this out. We can do this here. It's going to exit out of our game. And if we wait a bit, there we go. We do a little bit of a soft reset to the system itself, and we're back over in the XMB. Now there's two more commands I can show you on here, but keep in mind one of them you might not have access to, and this is going to be from cold boot. So for that, we're going to have to turn off the system completely. Now this is going to require cIPL to be installed. The good thing is, if you followed my upgrade or my install videos for ARK-5, I'll show you how to boot up Despertar del Cementerio, which adds a little more brick protection, and that's something that needs to be installed on the memory stick itself. In order to boot into that, you must have that installed on your memory stick, you must have cIPL flashed to the system, and you can hold down the left shoulder button and then turn on the system. If you wait a little bit here, you'll see it is loading up, and boom, we have access to that. So from here, you're able to reinstall ARK. You can install stock 6.61, do any sensitive NAND operations, check your hardware info, boot 6.61 ARK from your memory stick, shut down, and reboot. I'm going to go ahead and shut down right here. Now this last command here, you might or might not have access to it. You see, ARK-4 had the recovery menu, ARK-5 does not have a recovery menu built in. However, this is a little bit of a odd hybrid on my system here, because my memory stick actually had ARK-4 files on it, like the save data files, and then I overwrote them with the ARK-5 save data, so I didn't do a clean upgrade. But the cool thing is with that, you have access to a recovery menu. Now, it's not necessarily needed as much now, thanks to Despertar del Cementerio, but if you're on ARK-4, or even if you have a setup like mine, what you can try is hold down the right shoulder button, turn on the system here, and you might be able to access a recovery menu, which we'll just wait and see. And there you go, it even says it's the ARK-4 recovery menu despite this being ARK-5. So that is the final trick I have available to show you all here. You might or might not have access to this one, but what we can do is go ahead and exit, and that's about it here. It should boot up normally, but there we go, that's about all you need to know here now that we're back over at the XMB itself. Hopefully any of those button combinations might have helped out, hopefully you might have learned something new, and hopefully if you were having trouble with your system booting up here, you've now been able to remedy that in case it was something such as a bad setting or even a bad plugin on your console. Have fun troubleshooting, have fun gaming, and have fun messing around with your PSP a bit more. Either way, that is about it for this video here. This is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, a like would absolutely be appreciated, and if you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. Although, there, kind of downwards. Alright, there we go. Have fun.